Patch 12.21 is the Worlds patch, which means there won't be major changes to the meta. And if you want to reach your rank goal before the set ends, this is the patch to do it. Before going through each comp breakdown, here are the carries you should be focusing on. Ao Xin and Aurelion Sol, Xayah and Shyvana, Shi Ou and Saifen, Rengar and Swain, Seraphine with Graves, and lastly, a reroll comp like Kaizak. All of these units will be able to win you games and secure you top 4 spots. Just learn to play a couple of these and you should get your grind going easily. A simple way to go into one of these is by focusing on either AD or mana item components. If you open your game with a tier, you can play your highest cost backline dragons or Kaizak reroll. Opening your game with a bow will help you get boards like Xayah and Graves online, while a BF sword is ideal to build sustain items in Edge of Night or Bloodthirster for melee carries like Shi Ou and Saifen. It even allows for a more specific item such as Infinity Edge for assassins like Rengar. Now that you know which 3 items to focus on during your first carousel, all you have to take care of is your early and your mid game. Often it'll probably depend on which comps you like to play most. An almost always decent opener is by playing Lagoon with Kai'Sa as item holder, since you'll have strong economy with extra gold and loot from that Lagoon trait. However, if you want to play a more AD heavy focus, there are obviously better transition boards for every single comp. There will always be enough variation, but to always stay up to date, make sure you check out the in-depth guides for the best comps over on our website. And without further ado, let's jump to our strongest pick, the Age of Dragons. Now, dragons are what the Dragonlance is all about, which is why a board full of high cost dragons will always be the strongest board you can run by default. Terra, Ao Xin or Aurelion Sol, Shyvana, Idus, Rakan and Bard are the units that will get you that first place. Unlike all of the following boards, this is a fast state comp. That means you want to save up gold and health early by going on a win streak, whilst constantly slamming items and slotting in higher cost units to not lose out on board strength. Your most important dragons are Ao Xin or Aurelion Sol, and then your tank Terra. Your backline dragons will deal all the damage. Ao Xin wants a Spear of Shojin for mana generation and an Archangel Staff and Giant Slayer for damage. Aurelion Sol really wants a Gunblade as he'll ult pretty often, followed by similar damage items like his dragon brother Ao Xin. For Terra, you're first looking at a Gargoyle's Stoneplate, and then more armor in Bramble Vest and more magic resist in Dragon's Claw. For your utility dragon Shyvana, the only item you really want to have on her is a Morillanomicon for that extra burn damage and healing reduction. Any other items on her afterwards are just a nice bonus. With high-end shopping and level up being removed for this patch, one of the best augments to reach that high cap dragon board will be something that can get you on a win streak, such as Salvage Born to slam all items you have into general good items, or Binary Airdrop, which wants you to keep 1 item slot left on your units to get that extra item. Or of course you can also just go for a generic strong combat augment like Cybernetic Uplink. Next up we have Xayah and her guild companions. Throughout the entire set, Guild Xayah was either too good or just not playable at all. We won't go much in depth as you should know the drill by now. The units in play are Xayah, Shyvana, Jace, Bard, Hecarim, Rakan and Twitch. This one is a default leveling comp, so you're going to level up to 7 at around the start of stage 4 whilst finding a copy of Xayah. As your main carry, Xayah's best in-slot items are Gwynsu's Rageblade for that stacking attack speed, Giant Slayer for the core damage, and Runar's Hurricane which synergizes really good with the attack speed. Your secondary carry is Shyvana, and her itemization is fairly flexible. Utility is ideal though, so try and have a Morello's on her as she'll crash into the entire enemy team. You can then go for an Archangel Staff for the damage and then something like an Ionic Spark. Your other frontliners Jace and Hecarim prefer anything defensive, although anything else that's left over should work on them just as well. For those augments, any Guild Heart, Crest or Crown are going to be instant grabs, but Press the Attack or Scorch will buff up our teams and main carries damage by a ton. If you can get a Spatula very early into the game, it's always a great call to go for the Predator Cap, aka Dark Flight Rengar comp. The trait will activate a Dark Flight Hex that will work as a sacrifice, which grants your Dark Flight units either item copies or the Dark Flight Essence that buffs them up with tons of bonus stats. In this comp, you'll play Rengar, Swain, Neela, Kiana, Diana, Aphelios, and Rel. This comp spikes insanely hard in the mid game, but to build a winning board, you want to slow roll at level 7 to hit Rengar 3-star. There are different variations on how you can play this comp, but the Dark Flight Essence version is definitely the best bet. And for that, you'll need either any spatula item or non-craftable emblem, and this is where augments are going to play a huge role. Any assassin or Darkflight Heart, Crest or Crown augments are instant pickups. Place one of the emblems on a 1-star Kiana and voila, you have your Darkflight Essence. The same goes for augments that give you guaranteed non-craftable items such as Portable Forge. As for carry items, Rengar will already get the Essence copy at the start of each round, so only ever bother giving him 2 items. As an assassin by nature, he's obviously going to love Infinity Edge most, and then you just want to give him another damage item in Runar's Hurricane. The Darkflight Dragon Tyrant Swain is your secondary carry. He'll spread his Dragonlings onto most of the enemy board, so giving him a Morello's will be massive. Then follow up with tank items such as Bramble Vest and Dragon's Claw. The highest cost Assassin Neela will take all the remaining items, although another Infinity Edge and some sustain is really all you need to try and get for her. Up next is the ultimate Dragon Duo and Jade Whispers Soi Fen. This comp is dependent on a couple of BF swords, as your comp consists of Xiao Yu, Soi Fen, Pantheon, Jace, Na and Jax. This one is a default leveling comp, meaning stabilizing with a copy of your main carry Xiao Yu and Soi Fen in stage 4 before going to level 8. Talking about your Jade and Whispers dragons, as AD melee carries they both need very similar items. Bloodthirster is essential, or else they can't survive for long enough. Titan's Resolve works on these two just as well, although Xiao Yu really wants that Edge of Night. For a third item, you can always go for something offensive in Giant Slayer on Xiao Yu and Runar's Hurricane on Soi Fen. Your secondary carries and second duo are Pantheon and Jace. Pantheon will need the same items as your dragons, but it's also fine to treat him as a traditional tank instead. Your other 4-cost Jace prefers anything AP, such as Morello's Archangel Staff and Ionic Spark. For your augments, any form of Knife's Edge is really good, since your entire team sits in the front 2 rows. But your frontline carries won't deal enough damage if you don't have enough healing, so make sure you're also looking out for Celestial Blessing or Thrill of the Hunt. Another S tier comp in this patch revolves around a specific trio that synergizes extremely well. Consider yourself extremely lucky if the game invites you to the ultimate pool party, with early copies of Seraphine, Graves and Pantheon. Other guests that will also attend are Zeri, Zac, Bard, Rakan and Zyra. As this is a slow roll comp, you'll aim to roll for Seraphine 3 at level 7, whilst also finding a copy of both Graves and Pantheon. Speaking of our holy trio, Seraphine is the VIP of the party. Her ultimate buffs all your units' auto attacks, which is why Morello's is by far your most important item. Then go for a Spear of Shojin and a Rabadon's Deathcap afterwards. The second most important celebrity at the party is Graves. You want to give him items like Edge of Night and Titan's Resolve for that extra survivability and then some extra damage and healing with the Hand of Justice. For your third celeb, Pantheon, we want mainly tank items to stall the fight and keep the party going. Protector's Vow, Bloodthirster and Titan's Resolve will just be perfect on this guy. Other than that, the only other guests to consider itemizing are Zeri and Zac. Try and make Zac support Pantheon with leftover tank items and stack Zeke's Heralds on Zeri to let Graves do the blasting. For augments, pick up any healing or item augments such as Thrill of the Hunt, First Aid Kit and Better Together. Lastly, if you enjoy reroll comps, then Kai-Zac reroll should be your first thought. In this comp, you'll play only low-cost units like Kai'Sa, Zac, Jax, Volibear, Lee Sin, Karma, Malphite, and Nasus. This one is another slow roll comp, meaning you'll stay at level 6 to 3-star both Kai'Sa and Zac. The Lagoon and Shimmer Scale traits will help you with your economy, as you'll constantly drop extra gold during your fights. Your carry and Dragon Monster hero Kai'Sa wants ideally a blue buff to cast as often as possible, whilst adding Lagoon stacks. Then you just want to go for that famous crit item combination in Jeweled Gauntlet and Infinity Edge. Your other 2-cost carry is Zac, and as a tank he loves belts and chain vests, so give him a Warmog's armor so that he can stall the fight longer. You also want to give him an Ionic Spark for that magic resist reduction for Kai'Sa, and then another tank item like Bramble Vest. Since you'll stay at level 6 for your entire mid game, chances are you'll also hit other 2-cost 3-stars like Jax. You can always use him as your tanky backup with a Sunfire Cape for some form of anti-heal. For augments in this comp, focus on combat ones such as Featherweights, Preparation or something that helps you hit your 3 stars twice as fast like Trade Sector. That brings us to the end of our patch 12.21 comp guide that you have to play from our Challenger experts. If you did enjoy this video, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay ahead of the meta. Good luck and have fun.